Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, with the 24-25 season rapidly approaching us, quicker than I'm able to make stuff, apparently, I had an awesome idea. I thought to myself, hey self, wouldn't it be pretty cool if you actually started doing your division predictions? So that's what we're doing here. We're starting with the Eastern Conference of my attempt at predicting all the divisions for the 24-25 NHL season. And since we're starting out east, we're going to start in the Atlantic. And feel free, if you want, to give me your predictions in the comments. If you want to let me know how it's a lunch, I really am. I highly encourage that. But either way, feel free to jump in if you think my picks are a little off center, or if you agree, whatever the case might be. But either way, let's talk about it. Now, it's worth noting, and I've mentioned this before, albeit wrong, so I'll correct myself here. 3 of the last 5 Stanley Cup winners, not 6, 3 of the last 5 Stanley Cup winners have come from the Atlantic Division. I guess technically it could be 6 if you erase all the realignment that came with the 2021 season, in which case both the winner and the finalist were from the Atlantic Division. But that season is what that season is, so we're not going to try and counter that at all. But for the years that the Atlantic Division didn't win the Cup, they were represented. So it's fairly safe to say you could pick a Cup winner again from the Atlantic Division. If not a winner, then at least a finalist. But I'm going to go over my attempt here at predicting this division. We're going to go from 8 to 1, 8 being the worst, 1 being the best. I'll let you know early, my picks and the quote-unquote experts aren't that far off. We do disagree in some areas, and I'll go over them, but let's start off at number 8. I think Ottawa is going to finish last in this division. And it's not for a lack of effort. I think they will be a strongly competitive team when they have the chance to be competitive. The problem is they're in a division where if you fall behind early, you end up falling behind. Now, picking up Olmark wasn't a bad decision, even if you only have him for 1 year on the 1 year he has left on his contract. Put that with Anton Forsberg. I mean, is that a duo you feel strong about? When it comes to defense, I mean, outside Sanderson, Shabbat, and maybe Zub, nothing really stands out to impress me. So if they have ideas somewhere in the season to make up for this, that'd be great. But right now, on paper, defense and goaltending, I mean, have to be your question marks. And maybe they will be the question marks throughout the season. For forwards, though, I'm not too worried about what Ottawa has there, and you shouldn't be either. I mean, between Stützle, Tkachuk, Norris, and maybe even Batherson, you got a solid top 4 right there. Giroux is there for, you know, point support, but I mean, you can never go wrong with seeing Ridley Gregg play. So, all in all, it's not because they'll be a bad team. It's not because Travis Green as their new coach is not going to make a difference. It's just they're in a division that does not help them long term. Next is the Montreal Canadiens. Now, me and the quote-unquote experts, we're backwards on this. They have Montreal finishing 8th. I have Montreal finishing 7th. And really, when you look at their solid their solid top 2 lines, I mean, it's not hard to understand why. I mean, between Suzuki, Caulfield, Gallagher, if he's on, and even Slavkovsky, who I think is going to have a brilliant year, you're okay on the top, but what version of Patrick Laine are you getting? Are you getting the same version of Patrick Laine that was a goal-scoring threat in Winnipeg, or are you getting the Fortnite-obsessed Patrick Laine that isn't going to contribute anything to you? Defense has to be your biggest question in Montreal. I mean, outside Mac Matheson and maybe David Savard, your defense is very young and very underdeveloped, in my mind anyway. So hopefully that's something Montreal decides they want to fix. And then, of course, your goaltending tandem of Montebello and Caden Primo. I mean, as long as they're stuck with the Carey Price contract, they're in goalie hell. But hopefully one day they'll be able to fix that. I mean, yeah, Price expires after 26, 27, but that's 2 years from now. Do you want to keep rebuilding for 2 more years before you finally get good? I would hope not. Either way, Montreal's going to finish 7th in this division. For number 6, I got the Buffalo Sabres. So Lindy Ruff is back at the bench. Now, I shouldn't have to remind you, this is not the same Lindy Ruff that coached the Buffalo Sabres to the Stanley Cup Finals in 1999. This is a much different Lindy Ruff. And this is a much different Buffalo Sabres, who have that cloud of 14 straight years without the playoffs hanging over their heads. But you gotta like what they got going on. I mean, whether or not they make the playoffs this season, well, that remains to be seen. According to my predictions, they won't. But between Luukkonen and Levi, you're pretty solid in the net for at least a couple years, provided you can get Levi re-signed. I mean, we'll talk about goalies and being unsigned in a bit, but for Buffalo, the net looks good. And then there's the defense, and if the defense can really click between the Dahleens, the Powers, and the Byrams, if they can click and fire on all cylinders, that defense will be scary good defensively and scary good offensively. Just a matter of making it all work. Up front, though, I mean, Tage Thompson's always the question mark, and are we going to get that same Tage Thompson that's going to get us 40-plus goals? Between him and Zucker, maybe Alex Tuck, not much going on the forward line. So until they want to spend the money to improve all areas, not just a few areas, they're doomed to repeat history. And for Sabres fans, it's really got to suck. For number 5, I got Detroit. Yeah, I know, I mentioned this in my 10 bold predictions video. If you haven't seen it, check it out here. What if the Yzer plan doesn't work? And I'm, as much as it pains me to say this, I'm a bit of a skeptic with the Red Wings right now. I don't think the Yzer plan is going to work this season. I don't believe Husso and Talbot are the way to go in net. I mean, one's a backup, one's a career backup. And, you know, they did also pick up Jack Campbell, too. But that's neither here nor there. One of the smartest moves, obviously, was signing Moritz Seider long-term. But outside Seider, Sherratt, Justin Holl is overpaid. And Mata's not good. Their defense really needs a lot more pieces. A lot of stronger competitive pieces. And up front, I mean, between Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Kopp, and Comfer, add Tarasenko and bring back Kane, it should be solid, right? Can these guys score goals when it matters? I mean, one would hope they would, especially with a guy like Lucas Raymond. But whether or not they'll be a wild card team, I can't predict. I'm not even going to try to predict right now. I just have a funny feeling they're going to finish number 5. And we'll see what happens with the Yzer plan after that. So number 4, picking Tampa Bay. Sure, they lost Stamkos for nothing. Sure, they traded Sergachev to Utah. Does that really necessarily mean their window is closed? Or that it's even closing? I mean, consider everything they still got. I mean, Vasilevsky is still the man in net, and he's been playing like he is the man in net. As long as he keeps playing the way he's playing, puck should stay out. And the defense is where it's at. I mean, you got your brand new captain in Victor Hedman, plus you got a comeback from Ryan McDonough. Put in Eric Cernak, and I mean, you got a good top 3. And with Tampa, they'll always find partners to fill out the other 3. So defense is never a question. Up front, I mean, you still got Kucherov, and he's still putting up 100-plus point seasons. I mean, last season he put out 100 assists. So there's that. You've also got Point, you've got Hagel, you've got Cirelli, and you add Jake Gensel to the mix. Your top 6 is still good. And it's still producing points like it's nobody's business. So is their window really closed or closing? Nah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's no Stamkos on the team. Yeah, there's no Sergachev, but I'm sure they can still win without. I'm picking them at number 4. For number 3, picking the Boston Bruins. Now, I have to quickly point out, as of this recording, they still have not re-signed Jeremy Swayman. With that in mind, having said that, if he's not signed by the regular season starts, Boston's starting with Jonas Korpisalo and Kasimir Kaskisio. I'm pretty sure I said that wrong. Which, again, are you comfortable with that tandem? I'm sure they will sign Swayman at some point before December 1st. I'm certain of that, but I have no solid ground to say yay or nay. Defense is still big. You still got McAvoy, you still got Lindholm, you still got Zadorov, you still got Brandon Carlo. Defense is still good. And I don't think we have to worry so much about Pasternak slowing down. I mean, he's only 28. And yeah, he'll get you your points. Don't worry about that. Lindholm, I think, is benefiting from the change of scenery, being where he is now. Marchand's your captain, and Marchand's probably done after this year. Bold prediction, I'm sure, but that's your top three. Outside that, it's interchangeable. And maybe that might be an Achilles heel for Boston, but hard to say that. They haven't been the same team since Bergeron left, and they haven't done much to fix it. But again, hopefully with Swayman, that mess gets solved soon. For number 2, I'm picking Toronto. Now, this is a pick I really wanted to be wrong on, and truth be told, before I made the change, and I'm still not 100% confident in these picks, before I changed it all up, I had Toronto finishing 3rd, Boston finishing 2nd, but hindsight is what hindsight is. New coach was Craig Berube. Now, is this the voice that gets them beyond the 1st round, beyond the 2nd round even? Again, I'm not picking playoffs, I'm picking regular season, but maybe Berube is the voice they've needed. Hard to say. In net, still Lars and Wool. That's your starting 2. Are you comfortable with that? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Toronto fan, so I can't answer for Maple Leafs fans. Defense, I mean, it looks okay. It's nothing worth writing home about. I mean, between Morgan Rielly, Chris Tanev, and picking up OEL after winning a cup in Florida, mix that with Jake McCabe, and I mean, you're maybe good for 4. Obviously, last 3 are always interchangeable, and in Toronto, they can interchange any which way, right? And most times, they usually do. And then there's your forwards. I mean, but your core 4, they have to let this season not be a distraction to them, even though they're in Toronto. I'm sure this will be a distraction for them. Which of the core 4 goes? Which of the core 4 stays? Obviously, Matthews, Nylander, they're not going anywhere. So, again, Tavares, Marner, take your pick. I think it's Tavares. I think they'll stick with Marner because they drafted Marner. Tavares, they only got as a free agent. I think they'll let him go. But you also got Domi and Ryan Reeves to bolster up the roster. On paper, again, Toronto looks scary. Toronto looks like they might make a run, but let's not count the chickens, right? And then number 1, your defending Stanley Cup champs. I mean, really, it's hard to think of the defending Cup champs doing any worse than 1st. I mean, the only negative I can really think for them is that they've played too much hockey in the last 3 years. Time will tell, right? Time's always the judge of all these things. I mean, obviously, the Panthers lost some pieces. Lost Montour to Seattle. Lost OEL to Toronto. Lost Okposo to retirement. They lost Tarasenko to Detroit. They lost some pieces for the Cup, or from the Cup run, but it's Florida. They'll be able to fix that. In net, Bobrovsky and Knight. I mean, if Goalie Bob can play like Goalie Bob played last season, all season long this year, it's hard to say, yeah, no, Florida's going to do bad, because if Goalie Bob can play on his head again, there's no such thing as Florida being bad. But defense would be interesting to see what kind of a season you get out of Aaron Ekblad. Being it's a contract year, and he's a 28-year-old defenseman, former 1st overall pick, who I don't think has lived up to that exceptional status he was given. But outside Ekblad, I mean, you got Forsling, Mikkola, and Kulikov, and I think they're good on defense. I mean, you can throw in a Boquist, and they'll still be good on defense. But forward, that's where they're scary. I mean, Barkov and Kachuk and Reinhardt alone. That makes most people shake. That's not because I have a fan on. Like, that just literally made me shake. Add Lundell, Bennett, Verhaeghe, even Rodriguez for that matter. You can fill 3 solid lines of guaranteed production and not worried at all. Now, for Paul Maurice, this has to be the easiest job for him to do. Just coach the Florida Panthers, let them win. But Having said that, I'm picking Florida to win the Atlantic Division. So let me know what you think of my predictions. Whether you agree, whether you disagree. Either way, let me know. I'm down. It's another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you're tuning in right here. And if you are tuned in right here, if you've made it this far, just know that I am thankful and I do appreciate you, especially for all the new subscribers I've gotten in the last 2 weeks. Well, we've jumped up quite a bit, and I am eternally grateful to all of you who have decided to push that red button. But if you like this one, if you've made it this far, if you like what I'm doing, if you just want to say, hey, give me a thumbs up. I'm down. If you want to, if you haven't considered yet, be like 263 others. Hit that red button that says subscribe all over it. It'll make you feel good. It'll make me feel good. It'll make my algorithm feel good. So consider that. So again, doing division predictions. We're starting with the East, so next one's the Metro Division. But either way, in the meantime, in between time, be looking for videos from Trev. Later.